Hello, everyone. It's Monday. There's nothing happening, and I'm just kidding.
Oh,
We're
no, nothing.
we're in it. We're in it now. It feels like we're finally in it.
Boredom is, this is the boring time of the hockey season. My goodness.
I know.
Having a tough time getting through the weekend.
I know. No, we're gonna have to start doing Saturdays and Sunday shows soon.
Okay. Well. Speaking of Saturday,
Nice.
Josh brought up the 40th anniversary show of Saturday Night Live, and thankfully I did what I normally do with shows that I like to watch, which is DVR them and then be able to fast forward through the parts that are bad. And there were enough parts last night, Josh, that were bad. There were some that were really good.
Yeah, and you know what? Last night, what I took from the whole thing is some people looked like they were deathly ill, and then there were others who looked like they were almost like scorned coming back. Like Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
I don't know, something seemed wrong with Eddie Murphy last night. Like, he didn't want to tell a joke. He didn't look very comfortable being there. It looked like something happened.
Yeah, something was really wrong because there was this lead up. I mean, Chris Rock did this really funny lead up to Eddie Murphy. Because Chris Rock is a big fan of Eddie Murphy. I mean, I know he was in Boomerang and a couple other Eddie Murphy movies. So I think Eddie Murphy helped get his start in the business. And Chris Rock was on Saturday Night Live, and he does this hilarious 10-minute lead up or 5-minute lead up where he's saying that Eddie Murphy basically saved Saturday Night Live in the 80s when it was about to die, blah, blah, blah.
I think that's true.
And then Eddie Murphy came out and was so awkward. He was like clapping to the crowd and had nothing to say. And then he thought they were going to commercial, and then they didn't. He says, "I thought you were going to commercial." And it was the most awkward, like 30 seconds.
Like 7 words. I think he said 7.
It was. What's the problem? It was it was terrible. I'll tell you what I thought. And I'll tell you what I thought was pretty funny. Was the Weekend Update with Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. Her joke about I'd like to welcome back one of our old producers, Cocaine, was hilarious. But the best moment of the whole show was Bill Murray and the Lounge Singer. Unbelievable.
Melissa McCarthy as Chris Farley was pretty funny too.
Yeah, there were some good points. The Celebrity Jeopardy was pretty funny.
Yeah. How about Bradley Cooper making out with Betty White?
Yeah, that was a little. Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna watch it later, but I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, sorry, we're spoiling it for you.
No, you can spoil it. It's a Saturday Night Live one. It's okay.
But the musical acts were, like McCartney was fantastic, although his voice is starting to show its age.
Yeah.
Or as all of us are. Miley Cyrus, I don't know why she was on the show.
Yeah.
And Kanye. Oh my God. I mean, thankfully, Wayne's World made Kanye the center of their jokes at the end of the show. That was thankfully that was good. But yeah, the Eddie Murphy was the low point, and I think the high point was Bill Murray, and maybe a secondary prize to Jerry Seinfeld with his thing. He did like about 10 minutes of like going back and forth with people in the crowd, and it was pretty funny. So
yeah, it was funny when he went back and forth with
Larry
David. That was pretty funny. But like I said before, Mike, Chevy Chase, it was disappointing for me. I've always been a huge Chevy Chase fan, but last night he did not look well.
Yeah, face it. Chevy Chase I think he's in his late 60s or early 70s. He's had his own problems with that supervising producer that we mentioned earlier, and that takes its toll on people. I mean, does that guy look like the same guy who was in Fletch?
No.
Right, or all the vacations. I mean, Chevy Chase is amazing, and
it's hilarious.
I mean, Chevy Chase and Bill Murray were Saturday Night Live to me. That'll always be Saturday Night Live, and I know.
I think one of the funniest things is the fact that Bill Murray does the love theme from Jaws.
Yeah.
and who was in the crowd last night with Spielberg?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No Three Amigos last night. Did the Three Amigos make an appearance last night?
Yeah, all three.
Oh,
Chevy Chase, Martin Short, and
you know what? My PVR only recorded the first 3 hours for some reason.
no, I mean all three of them made an appearance, but not together as the Three Amigos.
How long was this thing? The first 3 hours?
3.5 hours. It was 8 to 11:30.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was afraid
and
my
an hour red carpet special previous.
Yeah. I was afraid my DVR was gonna run out. Run out of space.
That's
seriously. I mean, because I'm sorry, because I was DVRing that and Downton Abbey at the same time, so I wasn't sure I had enough space.
What did you think of the Gilda Radner impersonation?
I saw like 3 seconds of it and fast forwarded through it.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was that great. I mean, it's sort of like awkward to. I don't know what it is. I just feel like sort of weird. If you notice, the only one they really didn't, although the only person that imitated John Belushi was Jim Belushi doing the Blues Brothers. Yeah. Other than that, they left Belushi to Belushi, which is what you should do because he was, iconic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. All right, here's my quick poll to everybody in the chat room, and before we start the show, Kevin Allen's going to join us any minute. Okay. Best sketch comedy shows of all time. Okay, so you obviously got Monty Python, right, which just started the whole thing, kind of. I'm sure there was something. There was stuff before Monty Python. Your
show of shows with Sid Caesar and Mel
Right,
Brooks.
but now we're going back to very few people.
Yeah,
alive.
Right, but that was the trend.
Right,
set.
The Carol Burnett show and the Dick Van Dyke show. There were a bunch of shows like that. Laugh and
Carol Burnett show. I think the thing about the Carol Burnett show was the fact that they were cracking themselves up.
Yeah. And that was classic stuff. So then you have that, and then of course Saturday Night Live comes along, and then in Canada you have SCTV, right, which I thought was amazing. SCTV was funnier in my opinion than Saturday Night Live.
That's how Martin Short.
What was that?
Martin Short started his career.
I mean, so many people came from SCTV, and then Kids in the Hall, right, in Canada, which was another awesome show.
I used to watch it.
And in the U.S. you had you also had more. You had more sketch comedies like the TGIF show, wasn't that the Fridays show?
Yeah, Fridays. That was the one that Andy Kaufman was on, wasn't it? That the one with Michael Richards, and he got kicked. He got kicked off that show.
Right. So that's So there's there's a lot. Someone says
Living Color. Show. Don't forget about In Living Color.
In Living Color, right?
Yeah, In Living Color. There was one on HBO called Not Necessarily the News.
Oh yeah, that was a good one too. Not Necessarily the News. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Forgot about that. That was one of HBO's first shows that did by itself.
Yeah.
It was funny too. They made a mention last night on the 40th anniversary of Saturday Night Live. Jim Carrey, who obviously well known for his time on In Living Color, tried out many times for Saturday Night Live and didn't make it. And he kind of even threw Al Franken under the bus there and said he had a big deal in him not joining.
Our buddy Matt Barry, who does the King stuff, lived with Jim Carrey for a while during that period of time. Where Jim Carrey couldn't find a cup of coffee, and this is completely crazy. But yeah, that's
Believe me, Josh, there are many on one side of the political spectrum that would like to throw Al Franken under the bus.
Are you one of them?
Yes, yeah, I am one of them. But apparently, Jim Carrey, it's no wonder why he didn't get a job with NBC and probably never will get a job with NBC after last night, because apparently in the red carpet scenario he was talking to Matt Lauer and I think it was Savannah Guthrie and asked them where they were hiding Brian Williams, which I'm sure is something that NBC didn't want to go down the road of talking about last night, although somebody mentioned it in the show as well. So I think it was Chris Rock who did. But yeah, it was pretty fun, but there were definitely some moments that I'm glad I could fast forward through.
In a week today, we'll be talking about the Oscars.
Oh yes. We'll talk about that next Monday, but all I can say is I hope Michael Keaton wins Best Actor.
I finally saw Birdman.
Yeah.
It was okay. I didn't think it was as great as everyone said it was.
Well, I mean, That's the problem with seeing a movie after there's been such a lead up to it because you've built it up in your mind. It's like I saw, what was the movie with Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson? Wedding Crashers. I saw Wedding Crashers and everybody said this is the most hilarious movie I've ever seen in my life. Laughed, and I watched it. And I'm like, okay, it's okay.
Right.
Did you watch Interstellar? Did either of you see that movie?
No, I can't wait to see that though. No, I really want to see that.
It was good, but 3 hours long the movie was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the same thing with the Bradley Cooper.
The Sniper?
No. The one that broke him, the comedy with him and Zach Galifianakis and.
Hangover.
Hangover. Yeah, I mean, I heard so much about The Hangover that it was again the most hilarious movie, and then I saw it and I'm like, okay, it's funny, but not that funny.
I don't know. It's movies like that. Maybe I'm just old. I don't get into them.
The funniest part of that movie was Mike Tyson singing "In the Air Tonight" by Phil Collins and then punching out Zach Galifianakis. I thought that was the best part of the movie. Other than that, it was okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get started. We'll have Kevin join us when he jumps on. So I want to say.
Taken 3 was kind of boring too.
What was that?
Taken 3.
Oh, I didn't see that. Oh man, I could not watch. That's ridiculous.
It reminded me of The Fugitive. I thought I was watching The Fugitive.
Which I'm sorry. Which? Oh, Taken 3. Oh, please. I thought Taken 1 was weak. I did.
It's just 2 ones to watch that kind of crap. Birdman. I started watching it with my wife, and I liked it a lot. In the beginning of the first half hour I was watching it, I'm like, this is very cool. And usually my wife and I have a really good are in sync with the kind of things we like and dislike. But there's there's a trigger with her that she just can't stand, and that's movies about actors. And so as this continued on, it just completely got she lived in LA, she got her master's at UCLA, and dated and hung around actors and stuff like that. She just hates actors of all kinds.
Okay.
So so when that movie when it becomes apparent, obviously it's a movie about acting. Right. That whole Hollywood scene, she just loathes it. It was funny when we had Matt Berry over here for dinner once, and he's because all he is to talk about actors, obviously, because he's in that in that business, and she just brought that up to him too. She's right off the bat. She says, "I hate actors," and he's like, "Well, everyone in Hollywood hates actors too, because you can't walk 2 feet without tripping over them." But stories about actors. She says any business that's built upon just lie. She says just lying all the time, pretending you're something you're not. She hates. So that's her concept. It's pretty funny. So so I couldn't get through it. I want to watch the rest of it though because I actually was enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see it. I'd like to see it before the Oscars because I know it was nominated for. The only movie of the Oscar nominees that I've seen is American Sniper and thought it was excellent. Although I don't, the subject matter I think will prevent it from getting any kind of major awards because the Academy doesn't sort of like the glorification of the American military. They like the platoon type movies where there's conflict.
I have an issue with that too. I agree with you. All right,
J-Lo was good in The Girl Next Door.
What was?
I said J-Lo was good in The Girl Next Door. I don't think she'll win any awards though.
Yeah, that was good. She was good now. Yeah. Anyway, let's start. All right, so we'll just do Mike and Josh and then me, and then Kevin Allen will be joining us in just a little bit. He had a conference call, so we'll find out more.
Okay.
Okay, ready? It's the 16th, right?
It is the 16th, and it is a Monday, and it is.
I know it's Monday. I know it's
President's Day, and it's Family Day here.
It is the year of our Lord.
Big blizzard coming tonight to our town.
Yes, it was -11 here today. Thank you very much.
Wow, you guys.
40 last night here.
Always have to up us. I mean, we're -3, and I think that's gold. You have to up us.
Yeah, Celsius doesn't count, Josh. It's like about as worth as much as the Canadian dollar.
Right.
Oh, nice.
Take your funny money and go home.
Touche.
Here we go. Nothing against Canadian dollars, of course. Hello, Hockey World. It's Monday, February 16th, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Josh Rimmer.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com, and we'll be joined shortly, hopefully, by Kevin Allen. He's had some stuff he had to do this morning, but it's supposed to be over soon. So hopefully he'll join us as well. And we've got plenty to talk about today. My goodness, we had some trades. The beginning of the Leaf thing has just happened, and just when I said we couldn't talk about the Maple Leafs any longer, they make a trade, and now we have to talk about the Leafs.
Yes.
But yep. Mike, what are your thoughts on this move? Cody Franzen, Mike Santorelli heading to Nashville. Nashville getting in on this right away, as kind of figured they would, because Nashville's having a hell of a season, and there's a giant window open for them right now. So, what were your thoughts on this deal?
Well, first, let me just say, earlier in the month, somebody reported that there was a Franzen-Santorelli deal, them being paired together.
Thank you.
Same
Very kind of you.
Same guy said that there was a connection between Santorelli and Nashville, so
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Not too bad. Not too bad there.
You should check out that person and have him on the show sometime.
Yeah. I think he has a tendency of having too many things behind him on the set, but no. But from the Nashville point of view, this is a really good deal. Franzen will fit in well probably on their bottom pairing. Maybe play on their second power play. He could even play on their first power play. He's that good. Him and Weber. Although I don't think they want to mess up that combination right now. Santorelli probably fits in as a third line winger. Can play center if needs be. He can provide some secondary scoring. I mean, I can see and both are former Nashville draft picks. So the organization, David Poile, Paul Fenton, they know these guys. They know their makeup. They know that they're going into their walk years. They're going to be motivated to put up a good performance in the playoffs. And there is something,
not to interrupt you, but having spent a lot of time, covering Nashville and hanging around Nashville, this year I'm going to be probably the team I'm going to be covering in the playoffs mostly, going down there a lot. There's something to that, that organization, some players love it, and some players just don't get it. And I think that for them to go in, they got two players that I think loved it, loved the whole scene. And if you love the scene, then that's a big stepping thing, because it's a different scene for a lot of hockey people that there. I love it. I think it's amazing. But some people, it's a totally different world.
Yeah,
you like another league. They're playing in the NHL. It's funny.
You like the scene and the fact that I know Franzen still has friends on that team, including Weber from his previous stint there. I mean, Santorelli played like half a season with them before he got moved out, but so the organization was comfortable with those players. From the Leafs' perspective, they got the first-round pick that they wanted in the deal for Franzen. They also got a 20-year-old prospect named Brendan Lipsites, if that's the correct pronunciation. I've heard different pronunciations, so I'm sure I'll get it right eventually. He was a third-round pick 2 years ago, led the Canadian Hockey League in scoring in 2013, is one of the top rookie scorers in the American Hockey League this year. He's small, but he's one of these guys, as typical, he's got a lot of skill, and he loves to get underneath the skin of the opposition, so they're comparing him favorably to guys like Brendan Gallagher and Brad Marchand. Now, there's no guarantee he's going to be like that, but he sounds like he's a fairly high prospect. I would say a grade B or B+, somebody who can make the NHL, and a 20-year-old kid who's under control for 3 years on his entry-level deal, plus a first-round pick, which will probably be in the low to mid to high 20s, or maybe 30 if Nashville gets lucky. That is exactly what the Leafs needed for two expiring contracts. I think it's a good deal, and this was not Brendan Shanahan doing this deal. Apparently it was mostly Dave Nonis. He went to Nashville a couple weeks ago, negotiated with Poile for a few days, and the deal fell into place Saturday night. I think it's a pretty good deal for Toronto, and it's the first, apparently, of many, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that over the next few days.
Yeah, what are your thoughts, Josh, on this trade?
Yeah, you know what? We kind of knew. I mean, as Mike alluded to, you were talking about Nashville being involved in a trade with the Maple Leafs, about Santorelli, and you know what? I think the Leafs got good value, and if you think about what they could have had for Franzen last year, wasn't it just Josh Georges?
Yeah, right.
In Buffalo. So Buffalo would not have paid that much, in my opinion.
No, it was Montreal, and they would.
That's what I mean.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
And they would have been stuck, and they would have been stuck with George's contract for another 2 or 3 years, and he has not played well in Buffalo. So
Yes.
Right.
That's correct. My mistake.
Right. So that's a. I mean, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, I just think the Leafs got a good return on Franz, and I mean, a first-round pick. I mean, who would have known that they would have been able to get that? I mean, yeah, they got Santorelli as well. I don't know much about this prospect myself, but I've seen a few guys talk about him. I think even Craig Button praised him a bit, said he's a hard-nosed guy. But yeah, I like the trade for Toronto. I think they've got to blow it up a little bit more, obviously. I think it's something they should have done 10 years ago. You know, after Matt Sundin left and they realized, you know, this team wasn't going to be good anymore, they should have blown it up because then, hey, they could have had a Tavares, they could have had a Stamkos, and now they're blowing it up a little bit too late, where I think their chances of getting Connor McDavid are very slim. I don't know much about the draft class next year, but blow it all up. Get rid of it all. I got offered Leaf tickets to go to the game on Tuesday. I refused to go, and they were golds. But I don't want to go watch a team like them right now. It's depressing. And Phil Kessel's gone into the ground since anyone started talking about how his play's been off. He's just gotten worse and worse and doesn't care to even be here anymore.
Well,
yeah.
I ran for the day.
That's a good rant, Mike.
I don't know if Phil Kessel doesn't care, but he's just not motivated right now. He's not. I mean, he played pretty well on Saturday against Montreal. But I mean, right now, you know, this team they are going to tear it down. You know, they're hesitating from the.
What took so long, Mike? What took so long for them to tear this down?
Well, I think
I went on a rant earlier in the year about them and the way that I said that they were going to suck, and sure enough, they suck. And they waited way too long to do this. But it's good that they're finally doing it.
I think most of it was having to do with ownership and the fact that, you know, they wanted this team to, you know, contend for playoff spots and draw playoff revenue. And, you know, the opportunity, as you said, the opportunity was there a few years ago with Burke as the general manager to tear it down. And apparently he had full autonomy to rebuild, and he decided to go with a quicker plan and make the trade for Kessel, trade for Phaneuf. Build that way, you know, and to me, you know, as we've seen, they built the team on a foundation of other organizations' discards. Not to say that Phil Kessel and Dion Phaneuf don't have a lot of talent, they do, but you know, other teams would not have traded them unless they perceived that something was wrong with them, either that they would be demanding too much money or they were the wrong players to build around. I mean, I think that the evidence of the last 4 years is proof that that's the case, and now, you know, I think that they have been, you know, put into the category of what they actually are, which is, you know, Kessel is a very well-paid complementary player, but a piece that a team that needs scoring will have to pay through the nose to get. And Dion Phaneuf is probably one of the better second-pairing defensemen in the league. He's not a top-pairing defenseman, and those are going to be difficult deals for the Leafs to make. I think they're probably going to happen in the summer, so Eck and I will have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, but I keep thinking to myself, who is going to want these guys right now? Even when the draft comes around, and like, are they going to get full value or great value for these guys? These are two guys that had issues with their previous teams, and now they're having issues in Toronto. They're showing themselves that they're not, you know, team guys. They're me guys. I mean, we've heard lots of rumors about what happened in Calgary with Dion. We heard rumors what happened in Boston with Kessel, and now it's kind of, you know, happening again in Toronto. And, you know, what team is willing to take a chance on this? I spoke to a unnamed GM maybe about a month ago when this whole thing started with Kessel, and I asked him point blank, would you take a Phil Kessel on your team? No effing way was his response.
Well, I mean, it depends on what team you're talking about here. If it's a team that has enough scoring, then yeah, they probably don't want to.
He told me, he then went on to talk about his attitude and what the baggage he brings.
Well, there's some baggage. I mean, there's no question that there's baggage, right? And there's no question that there are people who out there who are not in Kessel's camp. But then there are a bunch of people who are in Kessel's camp, and it's especially, we got to remember there's a whole slew of the U.S. Olympic team's made up of this whole slew of U.S. born GMs, right? And they're all out there, and they're all a part of the on Phil Kessel, Phil Kessel supporters. I mean, he's been good for the U.S. team, and they see it a little bit differently. I think that he does have a ton of value. His contract is very pricey, and then the reason that when I heard San Jose's name mentioned as a deal that wouldn't happen now, but it could happen in the summer, for like a Joe Thornton, and more, but that's a contract, right? That's a contract issue that you can actually. Joe Thornton's contract's only a couple more years, right? And you're at the spot where that's a heavy contract. So now suddenly there's a team. A good team that could grab Phil Kessel and lose something and give the Leafs back something that they could use, like a center who can score. Well, I know Thornton's not the future, but at the same point, you get more than Thornton back. It wouldn't just be Joe Thornton. It would definitely be a good player as well.
The only way that a deal like that works, and we're just theorizing here, the only way that a deal like that works is if the Leafs, say Thornton was involved in a deal for Kessel, if the Leafs could find a suitor to flip Thornton someplace else for draft picks or prospects or young players, because the whole point of this, if the team and the organization is going to go through a full rebuild to bottom out for a couple years, get high draft picks, build through their own organization, you can't have Phil Kessel on the roster because he, being a good player, prevents you from being bad enough to get high draft picks. So, it's the same situation a few years ago with Matt Sundin, where Matt Sundin was in the final few years of his career, but he was a good enough player to have that team win games and finish in 7th, 8th, 9th in the standings to have that kind of draft pick. I'm not saying they're going to give away Phil Kessel for nothing. They want to get good young players who are under the age of 25, and if you're not going to give that in a deal for Phil Kessel, or give them a piece that they can move to get to players of that type, then they're not going to do the deal. So if they can't flip Joe Thornton someplace else to a team that is like one piece away from winning a Stanley Cup and needs that big center, that big veteran guy, I don't think that deal is going to happen. I think it's more likely a team like Florida or a team like Nashville. You said a GM like Poyle, who is in Kessel's camp from the U.S. Olympic experience, or maybe even Brian Burke and the Calgary Flames. They have a lot of cap room. Situations like that, I think Kessel will be traded. I think there will be enough players out there, enough teams out there that will make an offer that the Leafs will get a lot better return than what people seem to think. And Phaneuf, they may have to take back a bad contract, but I think that they can get a deal for Phaneuf done. I just don't think it's going to get done before March the 2nd.
With Phaneuf, I'm more along the lines of Josh. I think that's a real, and I know Kevin, if he was here, would agree with you, Mike, that he thinks Phaneuf there's teams out there, and he's probably talked to more people than I have about it. But I'm more along the lines that it's really hard to find a place for Phaneuf now.
All I know is that the reports out there in the last week or two, I know that they talked about it a little bit on the Hockey Night in Canada broadcast on Saturday, that the LA continues to be mentioned regarding Phaneuf. Anaheim, who has, and we talked about them before, they have expiring contracts with Sheldon Surrey, with Beauchemin at the end of the year that almost add up to around Phaneuf's salary of $7 million. Him moving to Southern California, there would be no way that he would block a trade to Anaheim or LA because of his wife's acting career. She's in a new series now. Dallas is another team that's interested, although the injury to Sagan probably eliminates any chance of that deal happening before the deadline. And they even mentioned Detroit as a possibility. I don't know if that's likely, but I think there are enough suitors out there that they will be able to get a good deal. And apparently, there were some Toronto scouts, including Mark Hunter, their assistant GM, who was watching the LA Kings AHL affiliate on the weekend in Manchester. Now, I don't know if that means Mike Richards. Again, it's the same scenario with Thornton. If you're trading for Phaneuf and you're getting back Mike Richards, who, if you're going through a rebuild, Mike Richards is 29 and, is maybe a borderline NHLer. What do you want him for?
Yeah, it's a totally different kind of player. You go from a bad leader to a good leader. There's different things. It depends on how you're defining your core. There's so many issues, but I think moving on to the Nashville side of this. I think the Predators got what they needed here, and I think they made a great deal. And the Predators have been very successful in making these kind of deals lately. They like Paul Gosted's a perfect example. I mean, it's not it's a smaller deal than this, but they got him for a first-round draft pick as well, if you remember, and at the trade deadline. And Gosted went down there and absolutely loved it, and has re-signed there and being a huge part of their core. They've been good at this. They've been able to make you knew they would give up their first-round pick because the Predators have always been more about the later rounds. They're great at picking up later round players, and they think the first-round picks are overrated and can be used. So you knew they would have that. That would be coming up for sure. And moving on to some other rumors, I wanted to talk about Kimmo Timonen a little bit today. Timonen's skating on his own, and from all accounts, things are going great. And this is a guy who wouldn't. He's so in touch with himself. He wouldn't. That he wouldn't be trying this unless he knew he could do it. Kimmo is the kind of guy. He remember 2 years ago said, I'm gonna go to camp, and if I don't feel like I can play, I'm gonna retire. He's very honest about this kind of stuff. So he's skating with the team. The team returns home tomorrow, or they're home now, but they play again tomorrow night at home. The Flyers are hanging in there.
Right.
Right now they're 5 back of Boston, which is interesting. And potentially, I think it's 5, or is it maybe 7 with a game at hand?
I'll check, but I think it's 5. I think you're right.
It's 5, and the Flyers left 2 points on the table this past road trip that were really bad points to leave on the table. They blew it. They blew a game where they were up 3-1 against Columbus in the third period. They also blew another game at the very end. I can't remember who that was, but a better team.
But they did get the 2 points last night.
Montreal. They barely got the 2 points last night out of Buffalo, which is that's a tough spot. But they have an interesting fact. Remember when Ronaldo got hurt? It was 8 games ago, and got suspended. Got suspended for 8 games as a result of hitting Letang. It was the last game the Flyers had before the All-Star break. In those 8 games that Ronaldo was suspended for, the Flyers got points in every one of them, and including the game, of course, that he got the suspension in. So the Flyers have been playing very, very good hockey, It seems like such a long shot for them to get in the playoffs, and the only reason I'm bringing this up is because I think it affects Kimmo Timonen in a big way. I don't think Kimmo Timonen will want to be on this team, just to play out the rest of the season. I know he's, I think he'd be okay with that, but I think at the same time, I think Kimmo really wants a shot at winning something, and if this team looks like they can make a playoff run, Kimmo will stay here, but we'll know in the next couple of weeks, obviously, if they're there, because this month is February is the month that they really have done incredibly well in.
It is 5 points, Zach. 5 points, but Boston has a game in hand.
Right, Boston's game in hand. That's what it was. Okay.
Florida's in between them. They're 2 points ahead of Florida's 2 points ahead of the Flyers. So, 5 points is. It's within the realm of possibility.
We're still it's only mid-February. It's not like we're not. We still have almost 2 months of hockey to play. 5 points is within the realm. Boston's a good team. That's the question is I thought the teams that have better shots at were the Capitals or the Rangers. And those two teams, and the Caps have been playing pretty good hockey too. So they've been staying up in the standings as well. They won last night in Anaheim.
Right, the Caps are 12 points up on Philadelphia. So they're not gonna catch them. It's Boston or bust. And the thing is, Boston hasn't made their move yet. They haven't made their acquisition that everybody is expecting them to do. Whether it's Chris Stewart or whatever. Supposedly they were interested in Santorelli with the Leafs before the deal.
They were.
Yeah.
And they were interested in Vermette as well. Vermette's another name for them that keeps coming up. And I think they will make a move. They'll definitely make a move. And they've called up Malcolm Subban as well to go on this road trip with them. There are rumors he might play actually in Calgary.
That could be a showcase situation if it's maybe they have potentially have a deal that they would use him as a piece. They do have Tuukka Rask, who's in his mid-20s. It's not like Malcolm Subban.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's not a real good future spot for Malcolm Subban here, and yet he's a very highly touted prospect. At the same point, you can't imagine. I mean, Boston's not in any position to be showcasing people. They've got to win these games, as we just talked about. They're in a playoff race, so.
Yeah, but if he's a good enough prospect, I mean, it's a showcase, but he also is somebody who could be relatively close to being an NHL goaltender. I mean, I
wonder if his value really is helped by playing him, though. I mean, he's one of those guys whose value is pretty high right now, based on what he is. And based on what people think of him. I mean, if you play him in a game against Calgary, or what have you, and say he gives up 5 or 6 goals, it's not going to help you. Or if he comes in and plays really well, okay, his value is still good. See, in my opinion, if you got a guy whose value is good right now, unless you want to make his value great and expect him to come in and like pitch 3 shutouts or something like that, in which case you're not going to trade him. So I don't see the real benefit of playing him.
Well, to the point of view of do you think Malcolm Subban or Svedberg is the better of the 2 goaltenders? I mean, Svedberg, I believe, had a pretty tough time in his last start, and Subban has played really well down in Providence. So I mean, it might simply just be the fact that they think Subban is the better of the 2 goaltenders, and maybe it's not a showcase situation. There have been scenarios before where the number 3 goaltender playing all the games in the AHL is actually the better of the 2 goaltenders in the backup. It's like a Dustin Tokarski situation,
which is good, and that's usually how it should. That's a good way of doing it, for the most part.
But just teaming in for a second here. I mean, they're only 5 points out. I think they have a legitimate chance. I mean, I don't know whether Hextall is going to be interested in adding at the deadline, or if he's just going to stand pat and see where the team goes. And they're going to get Mason back in probably a couple weeks. If they
not too long, and that's a biggie. I mean, if Mason was gone for the season, they would be done. If they can manage to stay close until Mason gets back. I mean, they're asking in the chat room. Peter asked do the Flyers still think they're in it, and the answer is yes, they do. I've talked to them a lot, and they aren't acting at all as if they're sellers right now. However, we're still we're trying to project a little bit into the future now. A couple weeks, we're 2 weeks from the trade deadline tomorrow, correct? So today, right? Today. It's Monday, right? It's a Monday this year, right? So so 2 weeks from today. So that's in between now and then, the Flyers play a really easy schedule, and if they come through that, if they falter in those schedules, they lose a game to Buffalo or Carolina or another a bad team in there, then you're going to look at this. They'll probably become sellers if they continue on this streak of getting at least a point, or 4 points out of every 3 games or what have you. They're gonna still stay right around the bubble, so they'll still think they're in it at that point. And then and who knows what Kimmo Timonen brings? Like, he could actually, he's a hugely important player to this team, and it could really be a big boost. I mean, what's wrong with the Flyers right now is the fact that their defense is horrible and they can't keep the puck out of the net, especially when they're trying to hold leads. And that's where Kimmo Timonen comes in and shines. So they would have. It was Montreal they lost the other point to. They would have beaten Montreal. They would have beaten Columbus, perhaps with Kimmo Timonen in the lineup and Steve Mason in the goal. It's a difference. It's a big difference with Steve Mason and Kimmo in the lineup than it is now. So,
but we do realize that Timonen, when he does come back, is not going to be playing 20 minutes like Timonen did before this blood clot situation. I mean, yes, it's cleared up, but I don't think that they're going to throw him right into a top pairing scenario. And if they do,
they're really taking it. I mean, he's skating a week by himself here. He's been doing that for they're gonna have him practice for another week before he plays. He's probably only going to play the last week or 2 or 3 games before the deadline.
Yeah.
And maybe not even that if they don't. I mean, they're not going to bring him in until they can play him like Kimmo Timonen is what they're saying. So I think that's where they're going to go with it.
The question is, are they getting him back in the lineup to get him back in the lineup, or are they getting him back in the lineup to trade him?
No, they're getting him back in the lineup to get him back in the lineup. But
if they're convinced that he can come back in the lineup, then like what you mentioned late last week about them shopping somebody like Del Zotto, who is a UFA, then that steps up because they have Timonen to replace Del Zotto, and then they can ship Del Zotto to a team that needs a puck moving defenseman.
Right, exactly. And I wouldn't be too surprised also if we see another year out of Kimmo Timonen, even though everybody said this is his final year, and he'll say it's his final year. It's just the kind of thing that, He's had a long break. He got a little bit of a taste of what life is like after hockey. If he comes in and can still play, you never know. And he's the kind of guy who's in such great shape.
It's a Derek Jeter scenario. It's like he wanted to come back, or he wanted to have that last full year because the year that he thought was going to be his last year, he got injured and didn't want to end on that bad note, so he came back for one full season. That's probably what's in his mind.
Yeah, I think that's the case. And Kimo's family loves it here. They're going to stay here after, so it's not like a guy who's going back to Finland. So we're looking at a player who very much could be in play. Now Petry, I want to talk a little bit about Petry too. I've been doing a lot of calling on Petry, and he's just the value on Petry. And Kevin mentioned this last week. It's just really low. It's incredibly low. He really a third-round pick is the best I've heard they've gotten offered so far. For Petry, and that's not very good.
That might pick up a little bit now with what's happened in the last couple of days. I mean, Franzen getting moved, that's over with. Now Mathot has been signed to the 4-year deal. I mean, if you're looking at it right now, the top defensemen that are out there now are Zbynek, Mahalik, and Petry, and maybe
Yandel.
One or two others. And
Yandel, which we'll talk about next, is the next guy I want to talk about. But yeah,
but I think the problem is Petry has sort of been deserved by the fact that Edmonton is just such a terrible team. I mean, every time I've seen them, they just seem disorganized, and he doesn't seem to be playing very well. I mean, Franzen, in spite of the fact that the Leafs have been terrible the last 30 games, has been one of their better defensemen and has been effective offensively. Mathot has been a good pairing with Erik Karlsson, and that's the reason they re-signed him. I mean, Petry is not showing a lot, and the thing is that some of these teams might be scared off to give up anything more than a mid-round pick for a guy that they don't know whether he's going to step it up in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think that's perfectly fair, And I mean, Detroit's interested for sure. He's got the history with Detroit. I mean, his dad playing in Detroit. That's a team that could do something. But really, beyond that, I mean, there are teams that would be interested, but I haven't seen his value rise as much as I've seen Yandel's value rise with the signings and trades that we've seen. There's definitely more discussion now than ever before about Yandel.
But the advantage that Yandel has is that the advantage that the team that acquires Yandel is that he still has another year.
Right, still has another year. Plus, he's better than any of these players.
Right.
So I mean that, and the fact is, like Sekera, someone's mentioning in the chat room, Sekera. Is kind of like in the Petry world, where they're not getting nearly as much as they want to get from him. Where he's out there, but Sekera is also maybe even more so like a polarizing type player. And when you talk to people around the league, some people are just not into him at all.
I don't get it. I really don't get it because I saw him play most of his early career in Buffalo. To say he's challenged defensively is an understatement.
Right. So you're in that. There's a lot of people who say that, Mike.
He's a terrible defenseman in his own zone. He's a very good offensive defenseman. He carries the puck well. He can play well on the power play. I mean, if you compare to him, I know that Bob McKenzie last week mentioned him and Franzen in the same breath, and they were saying that each team was looking for a first-round pick. I could understand that from a Franzen point of view because he's a right-hand shot and he's big and he's good on the power play. Sekera is not big. He's good on the power play, but he's not good in his own zone. And he doesn't block shots. He's not a very good defenseman. But the market is out there, and teams do need offensive defensemen.
Well, he can skate. He can skate, and skating defenseman is the key. Not even some people say offensive defenseman, but I think it's really more along the lines of skating defenseman sometimes because it's just you need speed in this game more than ever. You need speed, and he plays lots of time. He plays long minutes. Like he scares the guy who can, and that's important in this NHL. So yeah, I would say that but I don't. But his but moving on to Yandel. Yeah, I talked to people over the weekend who just were saying that Montreal was in on Franzen as well, and they were really upset about the fact that they didn't get Franzen this time around, and tried before, as we talked about earlier. But Franzen is Montreal. It's such a fascinating team because they're in such a good place. We talked about this before, but at the same time they are still being aggressive as to who they're trying to go and get. And yeah, that to me is they still have visions of going out and getting themselves a making a big trade, and Yandle would be a huge trade. And Yandel's a player that they're really interested in. So.
Well, and the contributing factor to this might be, and I don't know, I haven't heard an update on his injury status, but Sergei Gonchar got walloped into the backboards by David Clarkson on Saturday, and he didn't return to the game. So it didn't seem like he was seriously injured. But I mean, from just studying the Montreal situation and watching them play against the Leafs on Saturday, they don't need another defenseman. They need a forward. They need a scoring forward.
No.
And I mean, the RDS reported on the weekend that the Toronto had expressed interest in a couple prospects. One of them being the son of former Leaf Steve Thomas, Christian Thomas, who's been playing regularly for the Canadiens, and another player.
He's a really good player. Maybe even better than his dad in some ways. He's really good skater.
Very quick, got a lot of skill. Yep. But it wasn't clear whether those names were being mentioned in connection to Franzen or in connection to a Leaf forward like a Joffrey Lupul or somebody of that nature. We'll see if that bears out in the next couple of weeks. But I've heard them be connected more with Antoine Vermette than Yandle, and I think if they're going to go for something of major consequence before the deadline, it's going to be a forward and not a defense.
They really like their forwards, though, and I agree with you that I would go that direction too. But they really do like their forwards. What I heard, the talk was that they don't believe their defense is they don't believe their defense is transitioning fast enough to their forwards. They think their forwards are quick and their defense is not quick enough to get the puck up, which is why you look for these puck moving defensemen. And Emlyn has fallen off the radar quite a bit, which we talked about before, and I don't buy that. I don't know why they would. I don't know why they would do that. But
it might be the money, Ak. I mean, they re-signed him, and he's going to be making over $4 million. Maybe they just think they can get better bang for their buck somewhere else. I mean, if that's the case, that they think they're having problems with transition, then maybe a guy like Sekera is a good match for Montreal.
Right. And this is why Gonchar has kind of worked there, even though he's played marginally well. He's still a good transitional defenseman.
Yeah, and he's played well with the kid, with Nathan Beaulieu. He's played well with him. All I know is that they can't do what they did on Saturday night. They played PK Subban 35 minutes.
Well, that's their MO. That's what they do.
Yeah, but if you're going to make a long playoff run, you cannot play Subban and Andrei Markov over 30 minutes a night. You're going to have to spread out the minutes a little bit.
What do you have, Josh?
Well, you guys were talking about Gonchar and about the hit from David Clarkson, and you didn't hear much what was going on with him. Well, he's not playing tonight. He's out of the lineup. Didn't actually make the trip to Detroit to play tonight. No timetable on his return, but let's keep an eye on that. He could be out for a little bit of time.
And
it's a shame.
Upper body injury.
Yeah, and I don't know the status. I don't believe he's back yet, but Jared Tenorti, one of their defensive prospects, he was in a situation about a month ago that in a fight where he got knocked cold, and I don't believe he's been in the lineup for Hamilton since then. So I'm not sure if he is available for them. So they, maybe they do need a defenseman, but it may be a situation where they're just looking for somebody to plug a hole until either one of these guys comes back.
Tenorti is playing, by the way.
Okay, good.
He's back with the Bulldogs.
Good.
We do have, of course, a suspension to talk about today. Why don't we start with that, Mike? What's going on?
Yeah. Dmitry Kulikov, the Florida defenseman, got suspended for 4 games for his hit on Tyler Seguin. I don't know if you're going to pull the video.
I'm trying to find it, yeah. I know I have it somewhere, so I'm bringing it up.
It's got to be on the NHL.com website because they announced the suspension.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What's that?
I was going to say they called it an excessively low hit on Seguin, and they said that Kulikov bends severely at the waist and throws his body across Seguin's knees, flipping Seguin dangerously to the ice and causing a significant injury.
All right, let's watch it.
They're calling it clipping.
Here we go.
Got it here. So, okay, here it is.
And moments after this video was posted and I saw it, the first name that came to mind in terms of the type of hit it was Brian Marchment. Okay. Brian Marchment took out Mike Modano's knee back in the day. I think he took out Roenick too as well. And they were serious knee injuries, and he had a history of hitting low, but his were more like missed hip checks. This was a low bridge. This
is brutal. I mean, to me, in my opinion, this is only 4 games. It's awful. This should be way more than that.
Well, what they compared this to, I know I saw a couple people compare it to, if you remember the hit in 2012 that Brad Marchand had on Sammy Salo of the Vancouver Canucks. It was the first time that the Canucks and the Bruins played after the Stanley Cup final. It was in Boston, and he now Marchand is 5'0", and Sammy Salo was big, but Salo came into the corner and he basically did this and flipped him over his back. This was right at his knee. It hit him right at his knee, and I think it's a really bad hit. If it's what they say and it's Kulikov not knowing how to deliver a hip check, then he better learn, because he's going to get suspended many times if he continues to do that kind of stuff.
And the other thing about this is this looks like a retaliation hit, and I haven't really heard this talked about too much, but I was just watching this quickly, now if we watch it again, we'll go over here, because this, there's a hit that happens right before. Well, actually, no, forget it. It's not a retaliation hit. I'm sorry. Okay, I fell down.
Guys, I want to point out also the NHL didn't label this hit as a predatory hit as they did the Marchand hit, which you guys were talking about from 2012. So the NHL thought it was different than that hit. I mean, 1 game difference, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if Kulikov has a history of being suspended.
No.
Yeah,
I don't remember him being suspended.
Right, but again, and we've you and I and Josh and Kevin have talked about this on previous shows where I have a problem with the penalty of the hit being tied to the fact that the player was injured. Now, does that mean that if Seguin was healthy, that Kulikov would have got a 1-game suspension or a 2-game suspension instead of 4, and because Seguin is out for 6 weeks, that it's 4 games? I mean, it shouldn't matter. It's the hit itself. It's what the player does.
Right. Yeah, and in a way, I mean, obviously, if he got suspended more than this, you would hear some of the whole, okay, this is on a star player type thing. Like, this is because it's against Tyler Seguin, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't buy that. I think this is I mean, the guy's on his back, practically on the ground when he hits him. It's just way too low. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm not really happy about that. What do you got news-wise, Mike? Hi, Josh. Sorry.
Yes. We already did the suspension, so I'll cross that off the list. Moving on to Ottawa, the Senators announced today a 4-year deal, $19.6 million extension for their defenseman, Mark Methot. Methot works out to be a $4.9 million cap hit starting in 2015-16. Ottawa also provided the Blue Liner with a modified 10-team no-trade clause. At 29, he gets a nice amount of freedom in dictating his future if the Senators decide to part ways. Now, ESPN's Pierre LeBrun indicated that Methot compromised on term. He reportedly wanted a 5- or 6-year pact, while the Senators bumped his salary. Not a bad payday. And I think it had a lot to do.
Good.
Yeah, I think they did that because obviously they were waiting to find out what happened with Franzen, and I think because of the Franzen trade, this made them want to get this deal done.
See, this tells me, okay, Methot took a lesser term, took 4 years. He's getting paid almost $5 million. And I think he's a good defenseman. I think he's tough, and like I said before, he plays well with Erik Karlsson. He doesn't score. He's basically a one-way defenseman, not a two-way guy.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, Cody Franzen in free agency is going to get 6 or 7 years and over $5.5 million. I mean, if they're giving Mark Methot 4.9, Franzen's going to have no problem getting 5.5, 5.75 like Matt Niskanen or Brooks Orpik got. And that is I don't think he deserves it, but that is the way it's being run right now. You get to free agency and you put up a good year, and if Nashville has a good year in the postseason and Franzen does well in the postseason for them, that just raises his stock even more. So he's going to have a big payday.
Yeah. I like Armchair GM, who calls it a methodical deal. It's pretty funny. Hats off to you there. It's a good headline for the Ottawa paper tomorrow. But yeah, I think that this is a case where Methot was more valuable to Ottawa than he was other teams, and at the same time, Methot is the kind of guy that you want to build around. So I like it.
Yeah, I mean he's a I don't know if it's overstating that he's a leader. I just think he's probably a top pairing defenseman on Ottawa, and probably not a top pairing defenseman anywhere else because of how he fits with Karlsson. He's probably a second pairing guy with another NHL team, and and they paid for his fit with that team. Now they have a lot of room to improve, and in terms of the rebuild, they're probably almost as bad off as Toronto is in that division. But
yeah, and as time plays out, I think that they'll be okay, and in 4 years you'll know better. You'll know better what Methot's really worth as well. So it's kind of one of those deals that makes sense for everybody.
Right.
Josh?
Well, guys, I think also there's another team now that's going to be in the mix looking for defensemen. The Vancouver Canucks have now 3 guys out: Kevin Bieksa, Cordero, and now Alex Edler, who got hurt last night. You got to think that this is a team, since they are in the playoff hunt, they're in a playoff position, they're going to need to go out and get a defenseman as well. So add the Canucks to another team that's going to need a defenseman now.
For sure, and they'll be aggressive too.
Yeah. Moving on, injury-wise in Anaheim, the Ducks last night losing defenseman Sami Vatanen and forward Matt Bolesky to injury. So again, the Ducks now needing a defenseman.
The Ducks really need a defenseman, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Both went out in the first period against the Washington Capitals last night. Bolesky is out with a upper body injury after taking a hit from Caps defenseman John Carlson midway through the first period. So no Vatanen and no Bolesky for the Ducks. So that's a little bit of a...
and Vatanen has been a great player for them. I'm a big Vatanen fan, though, but I just want to throw that out there again. He's been a great player for them.
And guys, speaking of last night's Ducks game, I don't know if you guys saw this, but not everyone was impressed with Alexander Ovechkin's 4-point night last night. Ovechkin and Ryan Getzlaf had a run-in on the ice during the first period. Post-game, Getzlaf had some choice words for the Caps captain, saying, "I didn't know he was going to dive the way he did," said Getzlaf per the LA Times. Helene Elliott, "All over the effing ice. That part of it is a little embarrassing. Pardon my language. He's a great player. He's going to score goals and make plays. That other stuff's just embarrassing."
Hard to argue, actually, watching the play. I do agree with him, and I usually don't go after Ovechkin too much. In fact, I defended him quite a bit to people this weekend that I was talking to. But yeah, this is a tough one. I do agree. Cool.
Guys, finally, one last thing I want to mention. We lost another hockey player yesterday in Steve Monador, and I knew Steve really well from booking him on shows off the record, at the Fan when I worked there. Just a super guy, and I mean, you could see all the tributes all over Twitter from all of his former teammates. No one disliked the guy. He was loved. And they're going to have a very nice tribute tonight in Calgary. So if you guys get a chance, have a watch on that.
Yeah, well said, Josh. Well said. And there's a really good article by Eric Tahashik on this too, on Monador, who knew him very well. So you have to check that out. That's a really sad story. Okay, so let's move on to the to end, of course, with the NHL Draft Simulator, which, by the way, we would do the. I was going to do the rumor chart thing, but I talked about all the rumor chart things without bringing it up. But so definitely check out the rumor chart. I should bring it up next time. But the stuff I talked about with Timonen and Yandel and Petrie and Kessel, we got kind of all talked about. I talked about all of them in there. So anyway, here's the simulator, which we have run now this is the 9th time we run it. Remember, no, the Sabres and Oilers have not won yet. All right, today's winner is the Buffalo Sabres.
Oh, hey! They finally won.
The Sabres have finally won the draft. This is the 9th time, but they did win one. And it had to come eventually. I mean, they have a 20% chance of winning the lottery, which means, as Kevin put it so properly, they have an 80% chance of not winning the lottery, which is not very good when you think about how
but 100%
wonders
chance
of tanking. It's not that great.
100% chance of getting either McDavid or Eichel. That's
the bigger point, as we've said before. You can only drop one number, so and that changes after this year. But really, this is there's more like when you look at it, there's like an 80% chance that they get Eichel and a 20% chance they get McDavid, essentially. That's basically what it comes down to. So, but hats off to the Sabres finally for winning the Hockey Buzz Draft Lottery. All right, there we go.
I meant to ask you guys too. Did you see Kane's shootout move last night or yesterday afternoon against Marc-Andre Fleury?
I heard everybody going.
No, that shootout was phenomenal. The whole shootout was awesome.
I heard everybody going crazy about it, but I didn't see it.
You guys should take a look at that. It was pretty sick.
Yeah, I mean,
on NHL.com if we have time.
Yeah, I have it right here. I think. Let's see. Where is it? I had it. Oh, here we go. All right. This is it. I'll bring it up. NHL.com has these ads. So I'm going to wait for that to run through. 1 second. But yeah, this is, oh boy. So in 30 seconds, we'll be able to watch this. But yeah, Kane is such a dynamic player. It's just, really, I mean, he's the leading scorer. He's having a heck of a year. MVP is not out of his question right now.
What I'm going to be interested in, Ak, is whether the two main competitors to the Predators in the Central, the Blues and the Blackhawks, are going to counter the move that Nashville just made and try to add something before the deadline. I mean, because I think Santorelli and Franzen added to the team that's leading that division is only going to solidify them. And there's going to have to be.
I agree. We could very easily. So here's Kane's move.
Oh, wow.
The crazy thing is that Kane just does this, I know it's probably choppy on the view, but it's if you watch this, and the thing about this is he does this so slow and so easily. Like he really just makes it look like there's no effort to it whatsoever. This whole shootout was phenomenal, but that was particularly awesome.
He turned Fleury into a pretzel.
Right. Fleury broke his stick after the shootout. Again, but that's just a Fleury move. But yeah,
go
ahead.
Sorry. Well, I sent you guys a video to Nicholas Ehlers from the Winnipeg Jets. He was drafted by the Jets. He had maybe the sickest move, even sicker than Kane. Did you guys take a look at that one at all?
I saw it. It's nice.
I'm going to show it to you here, Ak.
Yep. Let's see, okay.
Wait till it resets here a second.
He passes to himself, basically. There you go.
No, but look, he turns the stick right-handed.
A behind-the-back pass to himself.
He goes from right-handed to left-handed. That's what he does. Yeah, that's amazing.
Like, have you ever seen someone switch their stick from right-handed to left-handed? Like, that's unreal.
Not in a long time. I mean, not when you think about the speed you're doing that at and everything. That's pretty crazy.
I think Datsuk might have done that before, but. I mean, there's
a lot of players who can
have to work
play either left-handed or right-handed, but you never see it happen in a game.
No. So that's all the Winnipeg Jets fans were going crazy when that hit Twitter a couple days ago.
That's awesome.
Like, we drafted this guy.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, the Jets have a ton of prospects. The Jets are in good shape.
Leafs could have had him. Oh well.
Well, a lot of people could have, yep. But they're in good shape. Guys, we'll be back again tomorrow. We'll have Kevin back, and I guess tomorrow we'll have Russ with us, perhaps.
Yes.
Depending on how everything plays out here. And who knows? We may have more trades to talk about because things are getting heated now. We're only 13 days to go before the big trade deadline day. We'll have a big show on that day. Lots more to talk about that later as well when we get there. Nice. I like the ticking's only in my head. All right, remember, guys, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Talk to you soon.